briefly before Mark introduces himself, we have Martin Gray here this morning playing the saxophone. I think he's just moving his car, so to save that for when he comes back. He's a client of mine. He's quite a famous saxophone player, having played in the Royal Albert Hall, but he does lessons and is open to engagements, Mark.
Okay, interesting.
So,
well, actually, that worked well here.
Yeah.
I'd love that. Yeah.
So, Mark.
Can you link us in afterwards?
Yeah, I will. Anybody who's interested, we'll link you all in. This is part of what this is about.
Good.
So, introduce yourself.
So, morning, everybody. I am Mark Robson, and I'm one of the owners of the Castle Pub here. I've been in the pub trade for pretty much 20 years now, and seen a real interesting change in the sector over that time, and I think we're going to expand on that a little bit this morning. I chair. There's three main trade bodies in hospitality, one of which is very focused on pubs, and I'm chairman of that trade body, which is a charity that has about 10,000 independent members. And so I'm very passionate about pubs and not just my own pubs, but the success of the industry in the long term. And a lot of what I do is helping steer the trade body and lobby into government and make sure that we're getting the messages for people like myself, who's an operator, and all the other licensees up and down the country to try and adjust government policy so it helps this sort of industry in the long term. My business is called New Dawn Pubs. We have, like I said, we've got this pub and we've got 4 others in and around Guildford and Odium, Linford and the area. So, yeah.
It's a very good point on touching on government policy. I mean, you're in a sector where there are additional challenges that the rest of us facing. I mean, we've just come out of dry January, which doesn't strike me as being a good thing for pub owners.
No, it's not a great thing,
So what sort of challenges have you got now and potentially looking... Actually, interest rates are going to go up 0.5% today.
Yeah. Is it half, is it?
Yeah, I heard it here first today. If I'm wrong, shoot me. Probably another quarter next month. And I suspect, I tend to think they're going to top out at 4 3/4, 5. So all your mortgages are going up. So what challenges do you face?
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously it's been, I think the sector probably feels quite bruised at the moment because, COVID was a pretty rough time for those in the pub trade. As it was for many businesses, but I think those in sort of hospitality, retail, travel were probably at the sharp end of what was challenging. Of course, I suppose as a consumer, COVID sort of switches on and off a little bit, but did do over that period. But actually, as a business that is reliant on people walking through your front door, consumer confidence is really important, and a big part of our trade is that sort of silver market that are retired, that want to go out for a leisurely lunch, and particularly midweek, and those people returning to settings like this was very elongated. So it has been a challenge. We've had some really crucial days and periods interrupted over the last few years, and if you think back to the latter part of 21, when we all thought we were, COVID was kind of in the rear view mirror, and then the whole Omicron thing came out, and it really decimated Christmas again for the pub trade, which was really bruising. But it disappeared quickly, and in that January last year, there was a huge amount of confidence in the sector. Consumers were probably sitting on a bit more cash than they ordinarily would be because they hadn't spent huge amounts over the previous couple of pandemic years, and everybody was in a really good position and ready to go back to normality. And unfortunately, obviously, we've had all the things that we know about in the last 12 months, which have just put the whole industry back into a bit of a tailspin and made it another very, very challenging year for the sector, which is really disappointing and actually very damaging, because actually what everybody just wants is a level playing field just to be able to trade their pubs at the moment. And I know from particularly the role I have with the British Institute of Innkeeping, the BII, that, I talk to licensees up and down the country that, there's people in pretty precarious situations, and they've gone from all the interruption of COVID to suddenly being stuck in this position where, their second biggest cost after paying for their people, which typically in our sector, for every pound we take after we've paid the VAT to the government, about 35 pence of that is spent on your staffing. Your second biggest cost is now your energy bills, which are just insane. And just to highlight it so you can really understand it, or understand the pressure, a monthly bill here for us, we used to pay about £2,200 a month in electricity and about 900 quid a month in gas. And last month, our electricity bill was about 12.5 grand and our gas bill was about 5. So you can imagine how absolutely crippling that is for the sector. Now, we were a little unlucky because we came out of a contract at the end of September, a 4-year contract, really, really unfortunate. We went from paying 14p a kilowatt to 98p a kilowatt, 96p a kilowatt, which has got the government, well, they call it a cap, it's not a cap, it's a discount on, and that's brought it down to about 62p a kilowatt. So really, really damaging for us, about 4 or 5 times the cost that we were paying prior to that, which has been very, very difficult. We've worked very, very hard with the teams at our pubs to mitigate consumption and do whatever we can, which is probably why you'll walk into the odd pub or restaurant or hotel over the last 6 months and realise, it's a bit chilly in here. And unfortunately, no one wants that, and everybody's working hard to make sure that isn't the case, but people are being rightly very, very careful about their energy consumption. Hopefully, when we came out of that long contract, we went into a 6-month contract because we really didn't have a lot of choice. We were definitely stuck between a rock and a hard place, and we will renew that in a couple of months, and it will come down. We'll, instead of paying or being on a rate of about 96p a kilowatt, it'll be in the 40s, so it'll be much lower, below the discounted rate we're paying at the moment, but it'll still be more than double what we paid previously, probably 2.5 times. So. And of course, and I don't want to sound sort of particularly downbeat today, because I am very upbeat about pubs, and the great thing about pubs is that they are, resilient, entrepreneurial, always looking over their shoulder to see what they can do next, or looking ahead to see how they can adapt and change. And I know the industry will move forward, but we're also facing a barrage of labour costs have gone up about 15%. I saw a report yesterday, food inflation is currently running about 17%. And so, we've got all these other bits to deal with as well. So it is so just, if nothing else today, when you leave here today, you next go to the pub, just bear that in mind, all right? And and wherever you can, just use your independent restaurants, pubs, hotels, whatever, because there's never been a more important time to get out there and actually support them, because it is brutally, brutally tough at the moment. And even when you walk in a place, look, if you walk in any pub or a restaurant on a Saturday night or Sunday, they should be packed. That's part and parcel of it. If they're not, there's a problem. It's the other times of the week where we just need a bit of support and a bit of help.
So looking forward, I mean, there are various government schemes which are all targeted to come to some sort of end. What support would you lobby the government for currently?
Well, look, okay, so for those that don't know, obviously we've had a bit of a mad, 9 months, a year politically, haven't we? And Truss's government put a package in place that got undone by the current law. And the support in place, which is about a 35p discount on your energy bills per kilowatt, comes to an end at the end of March, okay? We are very fortunate that wholesale gas prices have dropped, but it will still leave people paying a lot more money, as I said. Business rates has always been a massive issue for retail and hospitality, because in my view, it massively disadvantages those that have a physical presence, and massively, it's a big advantage if you're an online retailer, or if you're a business that only has one office or what have you. It's a sort of clicks versus bricks argument. So, for example, in our business, we got 5 pubs, and we probably pay, let me get my sums right, Well, let's use this pub because this is easy. So our business rates here, payable per year, are about 50 grand. All right, so it's about £4 a month, in addition to our rent and all the other bits going on. The government has given us some discount over the last couple of years, and currently we're enjoying a 50% discount of that. So our £4's dropped to £2. And actually from April, in fairness to the government, that is dropping further to the discount that's in place at the moment. 50% is going to 75%. So big tick for the government, the right thing to do. The big issue our industry has had is that there is no logic behind the business rate scheme, all right? It's based on a rateable value. No one understands how rateable values are actually calculated. It's really complex, it's not transparent, and you get issues where if you take Pizza Express across the road, and I'm just spitballing here, don't hold me to this, but they'll be paying a disproportionately different rate to us, higher or lower, and there's no rhyme or reason but behind it. It just doesn't make sense. And consecutive governments for many years have kicked the whole root and branch reform of business rates down the line, and it's really damaging because it stifles long-term investment into pubs, restaurants, retail, at a time when our high streets are massively suffering everywhere. You know, we've just lost, NatWest here, as I'm sure a lot of you know. I heard yesterday that the one in Fleet's disappearing. You know, they're important because they bring people into high streets. And you go and do a bit of I know the world is changing, and I understand that people have got to adapt, but having those additional pressures on high streets, I think, is really difficult. However, the biggest thing I think that I'm most passionate about in our industry is VAT. VAT is we pay the prevailing rate in hospitality at 20%. Almost every other European country, pays a significantly lower rate. Spain, Italy, France, Germany, Greece, they're all paying 10% or less. Well, I think Greece might pay 11, but it's substantially less than what we pay in the UK because the margins are so fine in the industry that it's so difficult for people to turn a profit. Plus, you get ourselves into this melting pot of inflation that we're in at the moment, or cost inflation, and your only source out of it is to try and drive more customers through the door, put your prices up. Well, no one wants to put their prices up because we don't want pubs to become more expensive, because they go from being part of your weekly, monthly, daily routine, whatever it is in your lifestyle, to a real luxury occasion, and no one wants that. So that's what we've been lobbying government on for a long time. I am sceptical about our likelihood of success in it, but it is for me, it's a bit of a silver bullet that could really help if they drop that rate significantly. They did throughout COVID, and it was greatly appreciated, and it really helped. And they dropped it, not wanting hospitality settings to drop their prices. They wanted hospitality settings to take that extra margin to help them recover. Right thing to do. They should have left it in place for longer. And if, for those of you who don't know, they dropped it to 5% for, I think it was 6 months or 9 months, and then it went up to 12.5% for another 6-9 months, and then about a year ago it went back up to the full rate. So that's the big thing that we have. I mean, there are lots of other issues with beer duty and which I won't go into, but I think for me the two biggest ones are reform of business rates and VAT.
Okay, let's go back. Let's lighten the mood. Because obviously you weren't always in hospitality, so I mean, whereabouts did you grow up? What was your background pre-hospitality?
I didn't really have one. I've always kind of been in hospitality, pretty much. So
not from birth.
No, not from birth. Although my parents enjoyed hospitality, it's probably where in fact, I tell you where I actually first got the bug for it. We lived outside Reading in a rural village called Farley Hill, for those of you that know that area, and we had a pub about 2 miles away that was it was a real horrible place, and it was commonly known as the Shit and Shovel, and probably in the early 90s, I would have thought. A couple of guys bought it, did it up, painted it kind of salmon pink, not dissimilar from that colour over there, maybe a bit more garish. And they just put a really good bunch in to run it and serve great food. And pubs weren't doing that, at those times. Not most of it was either you had a landlord, landlady doing traditional home food or it was pretty average. So that was a time when the whole sort of pubs were changing, they were struggling, food was becoming a big thing, they weren't female friendly, they weren't family friendly particularly. So, and it really resonated with me. And I had my sort of years of being probably 16 to 20 visiting that pub on family occasions or for a pint or a bit of lunch, whatever, and I just loved it. And every time I went in there, it just made me feel sort of warm and fuzzy, and that's where I think I got the buzz for it. But finished my education, went on to university and studied hospitality, and then spent a couple of years in America, a year in Florida and a year in Minnesota, working at different sort of hospitality settings and clubs and stuff. And then came back, worked for a big contract caterer, mainly on events. I used to be involved with, Royal Ascot, the Derby, British Grand Prix, all those sort of stuff. And I was based at Sandown Park Racecourse, so I learned a lot of the trade there. And great grounding, actually, really fantastic, because they're very commercial, so you learn that sort of P&L side. They were probably lacking a little bit of passion and a bit of food knowledge and quality at the time, but I know that's over the last last 20 years or so, that's really improved. And then in 2004 I left and said, right, I'm going to find a pub, and that's what I did. And I found a small little pub near Gatwick Airport in a village called Charlwood, and started Red Mist, or what was Red Mist Leisure. And from there, we gradually built up the business. A really good university friend of mine, we'd sort of shared a house together, and he was in the States at the same time as me, although at different locations. But we'd bonded really well and talked about maybe having a business one day. And actually, when I set the company up, he was still in the States, and I rang him one day and said, look, I've got this pub, it's doing quite well. I'd really love you to come back and help me expand it. And I think 48 hours later, he was kind of sitting next to me, and we were plotting our next pub. So, and that's sort of how we built it. For those of you who don't know, a bit of background on pubs, but there are different ways you can own a pub in our industry. Okay, the most common way is to have a lease. Okay, you'll all know what a lease is. It's either free of tie or tied. Free of tie means that you can buy your beer, alcoholic products from wherever you want at market rates, and you pay a market rent. Okay, so we don't own this pub, we lease this pub. It's free of tie from independent landlords. Or you can have a tied pub, where the pub is owned by what were formerly big breweries, what are now referred to as pubcos, pub companies. And they are the sort of experts in the sector, or supposed experts in the sector, not always experts, but they are a lot better than they used to be. And you'll generally pay a lower rent, but you'll pay a loaded beer price, typically double what the market rate is. So the ingoings are much lower, and they're there in the background to help and support you, but technically it's your business. And that's why pubs are quite accessible as an industry for people to get into, because you can go and take on a tied pub with relatively low ingoings, 10, 20, 30 grand, that sort of stuff, which is not a lot of money to start up what is a business that can turn over, £1 million plus. So and then of course, the other side is that you can have a freehold, and the freehold is you own the bricks and mortar of the pub, like you do, like you would a house or whatever, and then you can do what you want. There's good value in freeholds, and 4 of our 5 pubs are freehold. So we've done a bit of both. But our journey, we got to myself and my business partner, who's also called Mark. We got to about 2008, I think it was, and we had 4 pubs by then. They were all tied pubs, and we were working really, really hard. There was a real revolution in pubs over that time. Pubs are actually doing quite well. Labour government, very different sort of economic circumstances to now. And then in 2008, and by that stage, by the way, there was about 60,000 pubs in the UK, and the 2 pubcos, all right, there are 6 big pub companies in the UK, two of them owned about half the pubs. They owned about 25,000 pubs. And all of a sudden, 2008 hit, and pubs just hit a brick wall. You know, we'd had, if you remember, we'd had a very poor year the year before because we had a very poor weather through the summer in 2007, a lot of flooding, and it really killed a lot of people's summer, which is, you know, pubs typically make hay in the summer and at Christmas. So that kind of dampened things, and then we had the smoking ban that came in, and then the economic or the sort of global recession. And a lot of the big pub companies that had people leasing pubs off them were struggling because those lessees were working 70, 80, 90 hours a week and not able to turn a profit. So they were just sort of chucking keys back at pub companies saying, no, I'm done, I'm out. And all of a sudden, these two big pub companies didn't have people paying rents. And so they got to a position where they couldn't service their debts. And they had grown very rapidly over the decade previously. I mean, you almost couldn't buy a freehold in the pub trade at that stage. They'd snap them up in seconds. And so they had to start selling. And we managed to buy 3 of the 4 pubs that we had, that we were leasing at the time, and actually own the bricks and mortar. And that was really the springboard for that business to sort of grow and flourish. And then over that was in 2010, and then in the sort of years that preceded that, probably the next decade, we just gradually built the business up, mainly with freehold pubs, but with the odd lease here and there, to about 12 pubs in the end, which we sold in July last year, beginning of July last year, having had an investment the year before, which didn't really work out the way we wanted it to, but thankfully we had the option to leave after a year. So we executed that, and as part of that negotiation we took 4 of the pubs with us, including this one. And then very recently acquired a new pub called the Gumshaw Mill, which some of you might know, on the A25, just the other side of Guildford, which was looking very sorry for itself six months or so ago, and is now restored to former glory and doing really well. So yes, that's kind of my potted history in the pub trade very quickly. So now we've got a smaller business running 5 pubs, which allows us to be a bit more focused, well, a lot more focused, targeted, and really drive the quality up, which is important to us, but becomes more challenging, particularly in a difficult labour market. When you've got 10, 11, 12 pubs, it's really difficult. So we're more focused now, we're more customised, and I think we're a bit more in touch with the communities that those pubs operate in. And actually the feedback we get in those pubs is generally pretty good. So
I almost say it's a new dawn, Mark.
it is a new dawn, hence the name. Yeah.
So obviously we new dawn pubs. What's the future hold?
I think for us, having had 20 years at it now, and as I said earlier, the whole industry, I think, is quite bruised at the moment. People feel a little bit tender and just kind of want a bit of a break and a bit of normal trading. Hopefully that will come at some point. I'm sure it will. I think we're really enjoying this new reincarnation of this new business, a little bit smaller, a bit more targeted. I'd love to think we'll add another pub at some point, but I can't see it being any bigger than that, to be honest, Paul. And actually, long term, you know, who knows? I mean, I don't think I'll ever be in a position in life where I don't own a pub, because it's in my blood and I love it. But I know there'll come a point in time where I'll be really happy just with one pub. Whether or not that'll happen, I don't know. But yeah, really happy with where we are and just sort of building the journey for now. Yeah. I think survival is key at the moment. Getting through this little energy crisis and trying to come out on the other side is
I think that's the same for a lot of businesses, and many people in this room will be of a similar mindset, and it will get better. So I guess, what do you do when you're not doing hospitality? What's your wind down? Do you have one?
Well, I think the one thing I'd say on that, hospitality is I mean, it's a career, but it's very difficult to turn it off. And I think that's probably, it's a bit of a lifestyle. So people that are in it will know this, particularly if you're at a management or ownership sort of level, is that, you know, we only close on Christmas Day every year. Yeah. We never used to, but now we sort of give our staff that day, quite rightfully. So, and, you know, we have pubs open from, well, we have pubs with rooms, so they're never technically shut, but pubs open from first thing in the morning till last thing at night. So there's always, you're only ever, a few seconds away from a phone call about something, which happens because, that's part of the trade. And I suppose a lot of my social life is spent, out in the pubs and just, seeing the guys and saying thank you and, checking things are good and solid and out at other pubs and restaurants because I enjoy that. But I've got a young family, I've got 3 kids between 3 and 10, so I deal with the normal dad stuff and, school runs and football at the weekend and all that sort of stuff. So, pretty busy life.
You're selling yourself a little bit short because Mark does stuff for charity.
I do.
And you've got something upcoming, haven't you?
I have, yeah. Well, we have a big plug here now on this, if you don't mind. Excuse Phyllis Tuckwell, because this is a sector-specific one. But we do a lot for charity, and we've done a lot for Phyllis Tuckwell over the years with different things. And every year our business normally does a challenge, and we've done Hadrian's Wall and the Three Peaks and Jurassic Coast, lots of different stuff over the years, which is all pre-COVID, sadly. We're going to do another one in the summer this year, which we haven't yet finalised, but it will be another one, and we'll be supporting charities like Phyllis Tuckwell that are sort of local to each of the pubs that we're in. But I'm also being a sort of ambassador for the industry, or one of the ambassadors for the industry. I'm joining 30 people in April, and we are going off to Sri Lanka to cycle about 500k over 6 days. Up and down various hills and mountains to raise funds for the Licensed Trade Charity, which does some amazing work supporting people in our sector, helping them with anything from financial hardship to mental health to housing issues to whatever. And it is a complex industry at times, and they do some incredible work, and we signpost all our staff there, and they've helped us a lot over the years I've been in pubs. And a relatively new charity that was set up about 5 years ago called Only a Pavement Away, which is a really brilliant initiative, and it gets people who are either homeless or who are coming out of prison. It gets them from their current setting into work within the sector. What a brilliant initiative when we haven't got any staff anywhere. And there's been some incredible success stories with that up and down the country, and it's really gaining momentum, and the government are now the government are not funding it yet, but I think they will, but they're getting behind it because they're recognising this is adding so much value to the economy. So so I'm doing that in April. It'll be tough for me because I haven't ridden a bike in 25 years. And it's not so, I love walking, but cycling is not on my radar.
I'll lend you my electric one.
No, electric ones are not permitted, sadly. I'm looking forward to that. I put up my LinkedIn page earlier in the week, so if none of you are connected to me, please do so after today. And if any of you would like to support, then we'd be really, really grateful. So I think so far I'm about, I think I'm just shy of £3,000. Collectively, we are about 160k so far. Last year, between the 30 riders, they raised 275k, and this year we're really keen to try and break the 300k mark. So I know pennies are tight, but
it's really
big
good.
plug for that.
It's really good.
Really good. No, I'm looking forward to it. I'm absolutely shitting myself about it, and I am busy training, but I know it'll be good.
But that brings us around to something. I mean, pubs are always the centre of community.
Should be, yeah.
And you know that. In fact, I got a couple of my guys from the office here, and we built our business on look after the community. The community looks after you. And I know you and I are doing slightly different things in the community at the moment, because you're now currently involved with the Farnham Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, I am. I think you have been in the past, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, another little plug here. I think I've never had lots to do with the chamber, probably because I didn't have the time. But they approached me a little while ago to help or to jump on the committee. And the Farnham Chamber, which by the way has been going 100 years, it kind of fell over during COVID for understandable reasons.
Can I point out I wasn't there for all that time?
No, I'm sure you weren't, Paul. Yeah. You sure? And so we had a big relaunch event last Thursday at the Bush Hotel, which went really well. And the whole point of that is to bring sort of like-minded business people together in Farnham, or Farnham, the sort of surrounding areas, and really have a thriving, proactive business community that can talk about issues, challenges, opportunities, and sort of funnel that into, you know, the town council, Waverley, Surrey, any other sort of stakeholders that we've got, and really try and support businesses and do what we can to, you know, to lobby or to drive things forward, or to have certain initiatives and events. And you know, I think with Bid, and for those of you that probably know about Bid or have heard about Bid,
we got Helen here. Will give us 2 minutes on
great,
Bid.
Perfect. Yeah. So there's a so that's a big potential change that's coming up in Farnham this year, and I think primarily it will affect those in the centre of town who are in retail and hospitality. But the following the relaunch event last week, we've had a nice surge in membership, which is great. Obviously, these things don't work if you don't have an on-board membership. But there's a meeting here for members on the 28th of February, which the Bid team are going to present at, which is great. I think it's really important that we help with that platform, so people can understand a bit more about Bid. And I know it's been very successful in other towns in and around the south. So yeah, really looking forward to that. It's 90 quid, by the way, which is, you know, it's not a lot, is it? 90 quid, and you get a lot out of it, including a free attendance at all the events. So yeah, if anybody wants to be involved, then, you know, just jump on the website, and there's a Farnham Chamber of Commerce website, and there's details on there.
Well, that's normal. We sort of covered a load of stuff. Is there anything you'd like to add that we've missed?
Is there anything I'd like to... I will tell you about, we have, if you don't already know, we have a loyalty scheme in the business. So New Dawn has an app and lots of perks and benefits, and you can collect points and get prizes. We are just launching a corporate tier for businesses, specifically targeted at business, which is a bit more generous in its offering of, instead of getting a point for every pound, you get 2 points for every pound, and you get, you know, free meeting rooms with tea and coffee, that sort of stuff. So it's nothing we are publicly throwing out there. We want to keep it quite small and targeted. But if any of you want to if any of you are on our loyalty scheme, or even if you're not and you want to be part of that corporate membership, let us know. There are quite a lot of additional perks of that, and it's yeah, it's really worthwhile, and it's there to reward people, particularly businesses that use our site.
You've sold it to me.
There you go. It's literally just been finalised. So you can be first on the list, Paul, if you want.
Oh, I always like being first.
There you go.
Have we got any questions for this young man who's been absolutely informative?
Yes.
So you talked about the devastation in the industry, spiralling costs.
Yep.
COVID. What do you do to counteract it? You can't put up prices. You've got to have the staff. You've got to switch on the lights.
Yep. Well, say again.
Turn the temperature down.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the. Look, I think everybody has put up prices. I don't think people have had a choice. You know, we've put our prices up. I absolutely hate doing it, because I hate pubs being anything other than an affordable, everyday, you know, sort of treat for people. But I don't think people have had a choice. I think everybody's had to do that. What do? Well, you have to work really hard to get people through the door. I think you've got to work on both ends. You've got to try and work on your sales up here and do what you can to drive your revenue. That's why we do things like a loyalty scheme, or, you know, we've got a movie night coming up here, or all those sort of, you know, bits and pieces. And on the other end, we have worked very hard on our energy consumption. We've topped up all our insulation. We've just put in a voltage management system at every pub at quite large expense. You know, we've re-put log fires in everywhere, and, you know, if you'd come in here on any other day other than this morning, the fires would have been on straight away, just to get a bit of residual heat into the building. We take daily meter readings now at most pubs, so we can see exactly, we can monitor absolutely everything. You know, things like the bar fridges are turned off overnight now. That sort of stuff, which, you know, might only be pennies, but it adds up. So, and look, you know, the sector will be okay. It is a very resilient sector, and it's very entrepreneurial. It's very innovative, because there's people. The whole sector is built up largely with people running their own businesses. So when it's you and you're running your own pub, then people adapt and try and react to it, whether it's a new promotion, or, you know, yeah, I'm going to put sport on this weekend, or whatever it is, people will adapt to it. But we will see mass failures this year, sadly. And, you know, there's been all sorts of gloomy figures out, you know, recently. It's going to be a brutally difficult year for, and you know, I think all of hospitality, not just pubs, but you know, pubs are probably at the forefront of that. And I just hope the sector can keep evolving and changing and moving forward and finding new ways to bring people through the door and entertain people and give people a great, you know, a great experience. One of the things that, you know, there weren't many good things that came out of COVID, but one of the things that I think did come out of COVID is that people really miss going to the pub. And, you know, pubs are different. That's why I like pubs, because they are, you know, they have special places in the community. They're not just a place where you go and drink and eat. They're a place where you socialise. It's not just about the products. It's about the experience and the, you know, the environment. And they resonate with people in this country. And I think we fell in love again with pubs a little bit on the back of COVID because we'd missed that, or we'd perhaps forgotten how important that was. And, you know, our business ran a grocery system during COVID because we didn't have anything else to do. And, you know, look, overnight it brought in some pennies for the company, which was great. And we didn't know what we were doing. It was a completely crap system, but we made it work. But, you know, we helped out so many people that were in vulnerable, difficult villages in and around our area that just couldn't get food. And, you know, and I took a lot of those phone calls myself, taking people's orders, and say, for us, it was never really about profiteering. It wasn't. We were just trying to help and, you know, help us and help customers. And pubs do that. You know, pubs, they're in touch with their communities, and, you know, they will go that extra mile. And, yeah, so it'll be okay, but it's going to be a tough year. So, you know, as I said earlier, my message is, you know, don't forget that when you go out and see your local pub or restaurant. You know, support them as much as you can, because that's actually what makes a difference. Yeah.
You were sorry. Go on. Thanks very much. Has the spit and sawdust pub died? In the sense
Well,
you need a few bob to go to the pub nowadays.
You do, sadly, yeah. That's a really good question. I think it was dying, and I think if you'd asked me that question 5 years ago, I probably said it's on the way out. Actually, I think that's turned back a little bit now. You know, there was a stage in this country where there was probably too many pubs. We've lost a lot. We're now at about 45,000 pubs. You know, at one point we were 70 odd thousand. So the industry has definitely shrunk, and obviously people's lifestyles change. People are more healthy these days, and, you know, going to the pub is not cheap, as you said, quite rightly. But there has been a real resurgence in the last few years in community pubs, and I think that's for a couple of reasons. I think community pubs have really upped their game. They've realised, actually, I can't just be this dirty, dark den. We've got to be a bit more appealing, particularly to families and females, and not just be this sort of sweaty, smoky, you know, old man pub, you know, which a lot of them were, sadly. Yeah, I think, like I say, I think there's been a real change in the product offering as well. You know, we've had this whole sort of craft beer. I think Wetherspoons get a bad name, but actually their offering is very good. And, you know, they get a bad name because you get people in there at 9 o'clock in the morning drinking, you know, pints for £2 or whatever. And, yeah, I understand that. But actually, you very rarely walk into an unclean Wetherspoons, or one that is, you know, they treat their staff well, they're well maintained, all that sort of stuff. So I think there's been a, you know, complete revival in products. It's not just, you know, Foster's and, you know, and Carling and that sort of stuff. You get much more wide variety now. You don't just get your crap wine, you know, you get a nice offering of wines now, lots of different, you know, when I started, we only sold Gordon's, that was it. It was the only gin you could buy. I mean, we must have 25 gins now, and probably half of them are distilled within 10, 15 miles of here, which is great. I mean, how cool is that? You know, we do a lot of English sparkling wines, and, you know, so it's changed, and community pubs have changed as well. So I think there's definitely, I think they're definitely on the way up. They're also a lot less vulnerable to the problems that are in the sector. You know, the energy doesn't affect them so much because they don't have kitchens where, you know, they've got big walk-in fridges and freezers and big spaces like this. They're small, so they're more nimble with that. They're easier to navigate the staffing challenges because they don't have many staff. It's a small staffing setup. So they're just a bit more resilient in many respects than food-led pubs are as well. So, and I hope that continues because they're so important. You know, I was saying to someone earlier that, you know, I live quite close to the Barley Mow in Tilford, which I just love as a pub. I think it's really, really great. And good friend of mine bought it about 9 months ago, and it's never been a brilliant pub, actually. It's always had all the right attributes, but I think he's really working hard to turn it around. I think people are really, you walk in there now, such a nice atmosphere, and it is a bit old and a bit dusty, and I know he's trying to work on that and just improve things a little bit, but it's got full of charm. It's got a river, nice garden, river in the garden, cricket pitch in front of you. I mean, just, you know, where else can you do that? Yeah, exactly. So hopefully they'll keep getting stronger. Yeah. Richard.
I remember that time at COVID when you guys started becoming food retailers.
Grocers, yeah.
Yeah, grocers. And A, it was really cool. And B, one of the things about pubs that I like, and as I said to you earlier on, you know, we just decided to go down to the Duke last night because they had an offer on.
Yeah.
And Jackie and I looked at each other and said, no, I'm not going to cook tonight. And, you know, we'll go down to the Duke. But it's also about, so it's that sense of community, right, that pubs, the good pubs feel. But it's also what got me and why we sort of occasionally went down and put orders in was because you were feeding the whole ecosystem. It wasn't just your customers. Yeah. You know, arguably, I don't know the numbers obviously, but arguably, you know, that initiative kept a number of your suppliers.
Oh, 100%. 100%. I mean,
so looking after the whole ecosystem.
That's right.
I think that's what good pubs do. They look after the whole ecosystem.
Totally.
Not just one side.
Yeah, no, the supply chain. I mean, for us, because we're local and we like local and we wherever we can we buy local. But you know, that's our. You know, it's not just our food and drink, but our logs. You know, our alarm system, our chimney sweeps. Ian does our design. You know, you wherever you can, you try and keep it local, don't you? But we did. You know, we kept a lot of one-man people, bands. You know, in you know, people that make, you know, pies, and someone that makes a really cool fish cake for us. You know, we kept there. Our veg guy, Steve, who lives in Farnham yard, 100 metres that way. You know, he just had no business overnight. No one plans for that. You don't plan for that. But you know, we were helping him. He was going up to market a couple of times a week and bringing fruit and veg back. He was helping us box it, and so it was all working. You know, it was good. We were all struggling, but we all survived, which was the name of the aim, wasn't it?
It was all good. Yeah. We're running out of time, Mark. Last question. Yes.
Ian.
Not wanting to make you feel old, obviously you've seen a lot of changes over the 20 years that you've been doing this, and I appreciate you probably couldn't predict any of the challenges you faced over the last few years. But where do you see, in that sort of time frame again, where do you see the sector going? And just sorry, the second part of that is where would you like it to go? Is that different? Yeah,
well, I think if you take 20 years as the period, right, I think the really cool thing from 20 years ago to now is that pubs have got much better in quality. Okay, you know, they're now well designed, they're well thought out spaces. You know, the quality of food, drink, service, I think, has radically improved over that period of time. And I think the experience is much better. And as I've said a couple of times, you know, pubs were not particularly endearing to families or to, you know, to females in particular, and that's completely changed now. So over the next 20 years, I want to see that, you know, that evolution continue. I think we'll see massive growth in low and no's, you know, low alcoholic, no alcoholic drinks. That's a really, you know, 1 in 4 of the younger generation now don't drink alcohol. Great, but we've got to make sure we can offer, you know, we can offer that. And I hope the industry just continues to learn the lessons from the past and stay very much in touch with customers' needs, demands, trends, and adapts their offering, you know, accordingly. And generally, I think certainly in the last decade, I think pubs have been quite good at doing that. You know, some things will never change. You still want to be able to walk in and get a pint of cask ale because that's what pubs are about, and you can't get that anywhere else in the world. But you know, we've got to look at other things as well and make sure that we're on top of it. You know, we're just putting some dining pods into, you know, the pub in Guildford in the garden, which is cool. You know, they're sat on a river. You can go and sit there with 8 mates and have a nice al fresco meal in a little igloo type. I mean, that's, you know, that's just part of the journey. So I hope the industry continues to learn lessons from the past and evolve. And like I say, I really also hope that the government recognise. I'm the third biggest employer in the country, hospitality. I hope they recognise the importance that it contributes to the economy, because they're not going to get the coffers that they think they will if they continue to tax the industry. So yeah, onwards and upwards, Ian. Hopefully, yeah. Yes.
Very last thing. Could you just tell us what are the names of the pubs that you currently run?
Okay, so we've got this one, the Castle in Farnham. We've got the Royal Exchange in Linford, the Rose and Crown in Upper Farringdon, the Red Lion on the High Street in Odium, and the Gumshaw Mill in Gumshaw, just outside of Guildford.
And you need to make sure you visit them all, and you need to send in that clip so you can put it on his social media. It sounds really weird, actually, because this is like almost your home.
I know. I don't normally sit in the speaker chair, but
I think you deserve a mammoth round of applause.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thanks.
Helen, join us for a couple of minutes.
Come and take my seat. I'll refresh my coffee.
And leave your mic.
Oh, do you want that? Yeah.
Now, obviously, we touched on the Farnham Bid. Is it fair to say this is your baby, Helen, or?
Do I need to pop that on?
If you hold it, it'll work, but pop it on is also good.
Fine. I've literally only got a couple of minutes, sorry, because I've got another meeting at 10, but I know you probably will need to get off too. What I wanted to ask you was who here, just a quick raise of hands, has heard of the Farnham Bid?
I've heard of the Camberley Bid.
Okay.
Shocking.
So you've got an idea, maybe? Okay, so not very many people. And who here is a business ratepayer in the centre of Farnham? Okay. So just maybe 2 or 3 of you, 3 or 4 of you. Okay, so this really only affects those business ratepayers in the centre of Farnham, so I will be quick because it probably doesn't affect all of you, although if you live and work in Farnham anyway, then you will be able to take advantage of the amazing initiatives that will come out of the being part of the bid. So the bid is the Business Improvement District. It's confusing because we are working on the Business Improvement District, and in June there will be a bid about the bid. So there are 2 bids. Basically, it is for businesses and it is run by businesses. So although at the moment I am, my position as the bid project manager is funded by Waverley and Farnham Town Council, it isn't anything to do with the Town Council. This is an initiative, as I said, for businesses by businesses. So Paul is part of the task group that I sit on. There's also Waitrose are on board, we have UCA, we have Elfix, and we have another a selection of smaller independent businesses on there as well. There's about 10 of us at the moment, aren't there?
It's a good number.
And we're working with an external consultancy called Mosaic, who've worked with about 120 of the 300 bids across the UK to take them successfully through the vote to a successful result. So at the moment I'm working on the consultation process, which is talking to local business owners, the business ratepayer, and asking them what the key challenges are that they face to their business currently and going forwards into the future, being in Farnham. What is it that makes things difficult for you? What is it that you would like to see change? So some of the things that have come to light are better security, lots of issues with shoplifting in Farnham, so for retailers that's sort of paramount. Other businesses have said some destination marketing. Lots of people from here go to eat and socialise and shop in Guildford, but Guildford people aren't necessarily coming here. What can we do to attract other people from other towns excuse me, to Farnham? So those are just some of the things that the bid can do. The way it works is that anybody who's a business ratepayer within the jurisdiction, I've got some newsletters there if you want to take one, you're very welcome, and my business card. Centre of Farnham, those people who have a business within that area that are business ratepayer, there will be a levy of between 1% and 2% of business rates that get put into a pot, into a fund, which should generate about £250,000 to £300,000 based on the current figures that we have. And then that is spent on whatever the business owners decide is key to them and their businesses in Farnham. Those ideas are taken through the survey. There's a QR code. You can fill out the survey and workshopped in March to identify which are the key areas that we're going to put into the business plan, and then that business plan is sent to everybody within who has a business in Farnham and they then get to vote in June as to whether or not they want it to go ahead. If it does get voted in, then whether or not you voted yes or no, if you do have a business in that area and you are a business rate payer, it is mandatory. It's collected by Waverley Council and then distributed, paid to the bid committee. Will it be the company at that point, an independent company of directors and a separate company that will take ownership of that fund and spend it on behalf of the local businesses. So that is the Farnham Bid in a nutshell. We have got a website, so there are newsletters there, my business cards there. It's the farnhambid.co.uk, so pop on there. Basically, this newsletter is on there along with some other sort of facts and figures, and my details are on a card, so grab one of those. And if you want to see me, I will be with the Chamber on the 28th of February with Mosaic, presenting the bid at that point and answering any questions that you may have.
Yeah, because there will be meetings along the way. I think that's a brilliant introduction.
Super.
Anything anybody doesn't understand.
When is the vote?
The vote, it will be in June, July. We haven't got an actual date for that yet.
And
yeah.
What do you need to? What is needed for this to pass?
We need a majority of yes, obviously, and then we need the
So 50%.
yeah, 51%, and we need of those people who vote, the majority, or we have to have the excess of that being trying to how to word it is we have to have most of that as being the higher level of ratepayers. So we have to make sure that within that pot, although we've got lots of independents, that it's key that people like UCA, who are a massive ratepayer, massive contributor, are part of that and behind it. And obviously, you know, it's great to say that currently they are, and Waitrose and Elphick, so they're sort of the key top ratepayers within this centralised area of Farnham. It goes out just beyond Lidl and includes the new Brightwell, dare I say it, without having people shouting. And up sort of past the museum and up West Street that way. So.
Yeah, the way I understood it was you needed 50% of the vote and 50% of the rateable value.
Yeah, 50% of the rateable, 51% of the rateable value. Yeah, absolutely. Of those people.
So I understood
yeah,
something.
Absolutely, yeah, no, thank you.
I think that's probably enough for today.
Super.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you very much for having
I'll see
me.
you soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
At which point, this man was going to
Oh,
applaud.
thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
I'll
Helen.
leave you with that. Thank you.
At which point we normally get young Tom to come and tell us what's going on with the hospice, where all your kind donations end up. I was told your associate was coming this morning.
She was, but unfortunately her daughter is ill,
Oh, no.
so she's had to stay at home today.
Well, give her our best
I will do.
and tell us what's about to occur at the hospice.
So lots of exciting stuff going on in the hospice actually at the moment. You may have heard in the news that we are planning on doing a redevelopment of the hospice, which is going to be fantastic. So we are looking to, the building itself is 1920s, and a lot of it hasn't been redeveloped, so it's not fit for purpose in a few different ways to do with how the IPU, sometimes there's a ward set up and they don't all have individual bathrooms and things like that. Plus our maintenance staff are having to sort of plug a lot of different areas. So we finally have taken a step towards it, and we've put in planning permission for a big redevelopment at the site. We're going to stay on the same site, we're not moving to a different site, but we will have to move off-site for a little while as well. And then once we come back, it's going to be amazing for all the patients that are coming in, and it's actually going to allow us to expand our service outside of the hospice as well. So it's very exciting. We're allowed to talk about it now because obviously it's gone into planning permission, so it's all public knowledge, so you can all have a look and see what it is going to look like as well.
Yeah, it's been hush-hush for a long time.
It's been hush-hush for a very long time because we've been thinking about it. And then there will be at some point when we will go out to get the rest of the funding for that as well. So I'll keep everyone in the loop with how we're doing with that. But otherwise, at the moment, we still need to continue paying for all the costs that we've got at the moment. So and the care that we have for the patients. So one of the big things we've got coming up that I got asked to see if anyone fancies doing is we're doing a big zip line the England's longest zip line. It's on the 11th of March. You can sign up. And it's quite a nice one because it's actually our lowest sort of challenge event to sign up. It's only £30 to sign up, and we ask if people can get £100 sponsorship for it as well. And it's in the Blue Water Shopping Centre. Well, next to it, it's over the quarry there as well. And people can go down 4 at a time. So if there's 4 people in your team and you fancy having a nice day out where you can sort of spend some time, have some nice food, go down England's longest zip line together, it'd be a good team building moment. Do let us know. You can sign up on our website as well. Like I say, £30 to sign up, and minimum sponsorship probably around £100. So yeah, please do sign up.
You've got my 2 colleagues at the back.
He's looking
Shifting uneasily.
There we go.
See, I know that there's a weight limit of 18.5 stone, so I'm...
Yeah, exactly. I think there's also, they have one of these massive swings as well, so I think if you want as well, you can have a swing through the quarry. Not a relaxing swing, quite a terrifying swing through it, but it's good fun. Absolutely.
Yeah, so any questions for young Tom? No.
Yes, they're under Dartford way. Yeah.
Also, cement quarry.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the cement quarry there. Yeah.
Is Martin still around? Martin, our saxophone player, is he hiding?
Is it?
Come here, Martin. Come here. This is Martin. Martin's a client of mine. He's a saxophone player. He's a very good saxophone player. You missed your round of applause because you were moving your car.
Twice.
Is it true you're still available for sort of private hire and lessons?
I'm totally available. I also give clarinet saxophone lessons as well. And I've been listening very intently to what people have been saying, because I'm a minnow in the hospitality side of it, and I'm trying to sort of also eco-living and give quality to pubs and try to have a reason why people would be attracted in, listening to my dulcet tones.
This man sells himself short because I've seen him play in the Royal Albert Hall.
In the cafe at the back. Wasn't it?
I know Mark's interested, so make sure you give me his details. So I think everybody deserves a round of applause. Thank you very much this morning.